Hey, welcome to the Fantasy Flow. This is a conversation that flows between NFL topics and fantasy football. We are your hosts, Austin and Andy, and we're recording on May 30th, and this is episode 3. How are you doing, Andy?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to get into this episode. The first couple episodes revolved around the NFL draft, and this is kind of the first real off-season episode where we just get to talk about whatever we want on our own pace. And I think today we're excited to delve into some off-season storylines that we're going to be tracking this off-season. And we decided that there's too many good storylines to talk about, so we're going to split that in half. Today we're going to be talking AFC off-season storylines. And then I think at the end we're going to hit you guys with some team win totals, some over-unders that we're liking. Andy, what is your first AFC offseason storyline that's really piqued your interest?
Yeah, that would be Stephon Diggs getting traded to the Houston Texans. The Buffalo Bills traded a 2024 sixth round pick, a 2025 fifth round pick, and Stephon Diggs in exchange for a 2025 second round pick. So Bills said they had enough of Diggs. You can have Houston. You can have his contract, and give us a second rounder in return. On that note, now Houston, it's going to be interesting to see if Houston can fail. This is their division to lose. I don't see how this offense with Nico Collins, with Tank Dell when he returns, with Joe Mixon, Dalton Schultz, and now adding Stephon Diggs with C.J. Stroud coming off the season that he just had. I don't see how they can fail on offense. I mean, this is going to be a fun team to watch. I'm excited for it, and it's going to be interesting to see from a fantasy perspective which wide receiver is going to be the ball hog on that team.
Absolutely, man. Like that division is like yes, the Texans like barely won the division last year. Um, so you'd think that oh well they've only improved, but it's like the Colts are getting Anthony Richardson back, the Jaguars are retooling, and yeah, it's gonna just be really competitive. And you're right, the Texans are absolutely loaded now, and I think C.J. Stroud is a huge winner. I'm really excited about him this season. But then, yeah, you're right with those three wide receivers, not to mention all the other weapons on the team. That's something that everyone's going to be talking about this offseason, especially when it comes to fantasy football, is which of those three guys is a going to lead the team in receiving and b like which is the best like draft value, like that's going to be a huge conversation. What do you have any initial thoughts in here we are the end of May, which of those guys do you think you're kind of leaning towards?
Right now, Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs are pretty much going back to back in drafts. And Tank Dell, I think, is the wide receiver 2025 off the board. We're going to have to be monitoring his injury and his recovery during this offseason, but we know that CJ loves Tank Dell and he's going to love Diggs, but he has just come out time and time again that how much he appreciates Dell being on his team. The fact that they both got drafted the same year, that they had such a successful rookie year. I think Tank Dell is the person I would probably be targeting. But now that we just learned this week that Nico got the bag,
Yeah.
I think Nico, it's hard to see. You're gonna have to take your shot if you want a piece of that offense. You're gonna have to take your shot because the likelihood of all three players becoming a top 25 fantasy wide receiver during the year is very unlikely, and so unlikely that I was listening to another podcast mentioning that there was only two other times that's happened, that there's been three wide receivers in the top 25 during a year on one team. in the
Geez,
last.
yeah. No, I think they're gonna sort of trade off weeks. One week will be a Nico Collins week, the other week might be a Stephon Diggs week. It's gonna be really hard. But yeah, no, I think it was 3 years, 72 million, and that news just broke yesterday, I believe, as we're recording. And yeah, some people thought, oh, they're bringing in Diggs to maybe replace Nico Collins long term. Nope. They're genuinely excited about all three guys. Diggs might only be here 1 year. Maybe he'll be here longer than that. We just don't know. So yeah, it's going to be super tough. And you're absolutely right. I mean, Stroud and Tank Dell are boys. Like
Yeah.
they've been friends for a long time. I would love to know when they first met. I feel
Right.
like they were both like 15 or something. They seems like they go way back. And as soon as he was drafted by the Texans, he was begging them to draft Tank Dell.
Right.
If he's going later than the other two wide receivers, yeah, I could totally see him being the best fantasy pick of those three.
Right. And my not to lead too much into what my plan is, but if you can get any type of stack, if you can draft C.J. Stroud and then one of those three receivers within the draft within the next round, next couple rounds, whatever it may be, depending on their ADP by the time the season starts, closer to the season starts, I think that's a great move because, like I said, I don't see this offense failing.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's going to be really fun to watch. That's going to be like one of my top teams that I'm going to look forward to seeing them play. Uh, but man, yeah, the other side of it, the flip side, the Buffalo Bills, that's a lot of vacated targets,
Yeah.
and it's going to be interesting to see who steps up. I know they drafted a pretty early pick. Was it the first pick of the second round?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Trade down.
yeah, so they kept trading down, and then they finally took their guy. But that's definitely not going to be like a one for one. So
No.
yeah, it's going to be curious to see the impact that has on Josh Allen and all the other weapons.
Yeah. I mean, and they lost so many people on defense, on offense. They lost their center. They lost Jordan Poyer. They lost Tre'Davious White. They lost big name after big name on both sides of the ball, and I just have a feeling. I mean, they were really struggling, even with their team that they had last year. They were really struggling there until the very end, where they squeezed out. They like almost ran the table there the last 5 games.
They
or
had
something
to,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah, they had to exactly. And so, I think their head coach Sean McDermott's on the hot seat this year. If they don't perform, if they don't win the division again, I could easily see them moving on from the head coach just because of the expectations surrounding Josh Allen.
That would be massive, and I we'll talk about that if and when we get there for sure. I personally like him. I would be happy to have him as a coach, but
Right.
yeah, no, it's a super tough situation. I heard on another podcast that's talking about there are easier ways to win a championship, and there are harder ways to win a championship as a team. One of the hardest ways to win a championship is when you are expected to and you haven't yet, and you are favored, and there's all this pressure on you. It's almost easier for another team to just kind of come up and take it real quick. It's either that or it's a dynasty where you've already won. You know you can do it. You've been there. But yeah, when you're a team who hasn't gotten that trophy, but you're expected to every year, they're kind of the 49ers of the AFC.
Right.
I know the 49ers have trophies, but not for a minute.
Yep. But they need to. They haven't even gotten to the Super Bowl with Josh Allen, and this is like they're going to be the 4th year now where we're expecting Josh Allen to put them in that type of position. So
Yeah, tough spot.
yeah, exactly.
All right, well, if we're ready to move on to my AFC off-season storyline that I'm tracking, I'd like to start off by playing a little game with you. I'm going to give you player A and player B. I'm going to read off some stats, and you're just going to tell me how you feel, how it makes you feel.
Okay.
Okay, well, what kind of mood it puts you in. Maybe if you prefer one player or another, we'll call this player Player A. In a 30-game sample size, this quarterback went 11 and 19, 11 wins, 19 losses, 63% completion percentage, 42 to 19 touchdowns to interceptions. That's Player A. Okay, how does that make you feel?
Not great.
Okay. In 30 games, only 42 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Yeah. Player B. Now, this is a 40-game sample size.
Okay.
11 wins, 29 losses,
Okay.
60% completion percentage,
Yep.
and a touchdown to interception ratio of 40 to 30.
Oh God. Okay.
That's 40 passing touchdowns in 40 games.
Yeah.
Do you know where I'm going with this? Or do you know who's who?
No, I have no idea. I'm really
Okay,
curious.
okay. But between those two players, they're both quarterbacks, quarterback A or quarterback B. Where would you go if you had to start a team? If you had to start one of these guys on your team?
Ugh. Does it? Do you have rushing touchdowns versus
I do.
passing
I do.
touchdowns? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So that was just passing. So
That
if
was
we
just passing. Okay.
yes, if we throw the rushing touchdowns in there, I feel like it's only fair to throw the fumbles in there too.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll go back to quarterback A, who in 30 games went 11 and 19,
Yep.
roughly a 2-to-1 passing touchdown to interception ratio. He had 6 rushing touchdowns and 7 fumbles lost.
Okay.
You combined both the passing and the rushing for an overall 1.8 touchdown to turnover ratio.
Okay. Okay.
Quarterback B had 14 rushing touchdowns and 11 lost fumbles.
Ooh.
So that's that's at least more rushing touchdowns than it is lost fumbles. When you combine that with his passing stats, you get a combined touchdown to turnover ratio of 1.3 as opposed to 1.8.
So yes. Yeah. So I'm gonna go with quarterback A.
So did the Broncos. So that's Russell Wilson. Just his starts with the Denver Broncos. His 2 seasons with the Denver Broncos, though those are the numbers he put up combined. Quarterback B is Justin Fields' whole career.
11 wins as your entire career. Yikes.
Yeah, 40 games, he went 11 and 29.
Ooh, that's so bad.
So he had 40. Justin Fields has thrown 1 passing touchdown per game.
That's terrible.
It's hilariously bad.
No wonder they
And that
were-
is
yeah.
what the Pittsburgh Steelers have to choose between this offseason.
Yeah. Yeah, no wonder Chicago let him go. I mean, that when you explain it like that, it's such an easy decision to trade him and draft Caleb Williams.
Yeah, when the alternative is Caleb Williams, it's
Yeah.
pretty easy. I get Justin Fields is only 25. There wasn't a great situation.
No.
There are some reasonable excuses out there, but he's been bad. I didn't realize how bad.
Yeah,
And then I got one more stat for you.
Go for it. Go for it.
In 2022, so 2 years ago, both of these quarterbacks, Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, tied for the league lead with 55 sacks.
Yeah. Yep.
Last year, 2023, they were both still in the top 5.
Yep. Yep. For sure. For sure.
So they have the same play style, they have the same flaws, they have the same mid stats.
I think, hence why they're on the same team.
Yeah. You don't have to change the offense if you want to swap them in and out.
Right.
It's you're dealing with the same person basically. But yeah, that's I remember people used to comp Justin Fields to Russell Wilson, and it was a positive thing. It was like, oh, he could be the next Russell Wilson. It's like, no,
Right.
he's Russell Wilson now. He's
Yeah.
the bad one.
Yeah, he is currently Russell Wilson. Yeah. I
Yeah,
uh I wouldn't be surprised if they do some weird wildcat slash double QB set. I wouldn't be surprised if both quarterbacks come in during the same game.
that would be crazy. Everyone would be talking about that.
Right.
And I honestly think that the Steelers, and we'll get into this more when we talk running backs later this offseason, but the Steelers are going to run the ball, I think, more than we've ever seen.
Yes, yes.
Mike Tomlin, that is his philosophy. He loves winning games where he runs it over and over again and he stops the other team with his incredible defense and he wins, 17-15 or something. He loves those games. And he just hired Arthur Smith as his
Yep.
offensive coordinator who is
All about running the ball.
he's obsessed. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I was gonna bring that up if you didn't. So yes, I totally agree. I also think the NFL is putting Mike Tomlin to the test this year. That with the schedule making on having all of their division games like the last 10 games of their season and the
Yeah.
or last 8, sorry, last 8 or something like that. And the other two within those 8 games are the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs.
Wow.
So they have all division games, and those two monsters of a teams that they have to try to beat all of them, win as many games as possible within those 8 to make the playoffs, especially at the end of the season. Oh man, I really think Goodell and the NFL is just like, you've always had a positive season. This is your final test right here.
Oh, yeah. No, that sounds brutal. And I mean, all credit to them, but let's be real. I mean, if Joe Burrow doesn't go down, if the Browns ever figured out how to keep a quarterback healthy and just start
Yeah.
the same guy all season, I mean, this division was pretty wide open
Yeah.
last year.
Yep.
Uh,
That's true.
so,
That's true.
well, I'm saying that as like I'm agreeing with you that this year, they might not get those same breaks.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So it's like, man, everything broke right for them, and they still won what, like 9 or 10 games.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the absolute ceiling here, and I don't really see that happening. Fantasy wise, if you're not a running back on this team, I'm not really interested. Especially after looking at those stats, I'm just like, oh my goodness. But yeah, just some other interesting off-season things to watch for the Steelers. They're rumored as a team to possibly sign another wide receiver. Michael Thomas is still out there. He's been kind of rumored as a guy that they could add. And they're already calling Russell Wilson the starter. That's the last thing I wanted to get out there is that he is the starter according to the team right now. But especially in the offseason, against air, Justin Fields looks really good.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if by preseason it's a total toss-up.
Yeah, true. The one thing that Russ really has going for him, though, is he never misses games. So once he becomes the starter, once he goes out there for the first play, he's pro. Unless unless they do 2 quarterbacks within the same game and do different sets. I mean, he has that spot pretty much the whole.
He'd have to get yanked.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
no, that's a good point. Yeah, I think he starts week 1, and as soon as that team gets like 2 games under 500, I think a lot of the fans are going to want to see Justin Fields. The other thing too, the Steelers are paying Justin Fields like twice as much as they're paying Russell Wilson, which is crazy. Like
That is crazy.
all of Wilson's huge contract is being paid for by the Broncos. So
Oh
like,
yeah, he's still getting paid monster money though.
yeah, but it's just ironic that like the Steelers they traded for Justin Fields, and they're paying him. They're more committed to Justin Fields than they are to Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's just something else to keep in mind.
Yeah, this is his.
and-
I think this is his 5th year though. Justin Fields.
They Yeah, they traded for him. This will be his fourth year,
Oh, fourth year, yeah.
and they declined his fifth year option. So
That's
both
right.
of these guys are going to be free agents after this year.
Right.
So it's like for redraft, no one really cares about the quarterback situation unless you're thinking about drafting Pickens or one of the wide receivers.
Right.
But for two quarterback leagues, for superflex dynasty leagues, this is a huge asset that you're just like, is this like this could either be a great season where that player wins the job and gets another contract, or this could be the last time they ever
Yeah.
start.
They could just be renting that spot for a
They
year.
could be they could go poof.
Yeah.
And that's a player that like we just did a startup draft a couple months ago, and both of these guys were, and it was a big super flex league. Both of these guys went in like rounds 1 and 2. They
Yep.
might have both been first round picks. I don't know.
Yep. Yep.
Uh,
Definitely in the first two rounds.
yeah. So that's crazy to me, and I'm definitely gonna be plugged into that this off season. What was your? You had one final off season storyline
Yeah.
to share with us, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to talk about Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Speaking of Houston's division,
Mm.
you have the Tennessee Titans with Levis. I'm a little up on Levis, even though I think Houston's gonna win that division. And then you have the Colts and with Anthony Richardson coming back. We'll see how that goes. And then you have the vet of Trevor Lawrence, which is funny to say.
It's true.
And he's coming in as a first overall pick. He's coming up on his fourth year and probably looking for that contract extension. And I'm here to say that I think if I was a GM, I think I would probably give him an extension, but I would not offer the max. I would not offer to pay this guy like a Justin Herbert or pay him like a Joey B. I would offer somewhat a little, maybe a little bit higher than Geno, higher than Baker, higher. They won a playoff game against a team that just was known for crumbling apart in big spots, and that's about it. Now, everyone gives Trevor Lawrence that first year pass because of Urban Meyer, but are we going to are we giving Bryce Young any grief or any grace? Are we giving Baker? Did we give Baker as a first overall pick any grace after that? After he had three different head coaches his first 3 years in the league? No, we've been ridiculing Baker ever since, and now he's just starting to get some praise because he's taken over the Buccaneers. My point in all this is we shouldn't just give Trevor Lawrence like this massive excuse bubble because of that first year. And he has performed. I was looking at his stats and his completion percentage. He's thrown over 4,000 yards these last 2 years. His touchdown to interception ratio is not that bad, but also he just hasn't been able to lead the team to. He has kind of what same with Josh Allen. Like he has all these expectations, but they haven't performed. Obviously, they did better after that first year of Urban Meyer. Obviously, I mean it's a pretty low bar, pretty easy bar to set there, past that bar. But I just don't know if he deserves that big of a contract. That's my main point.
Yeah, no, he's definitely disappointed. Like he bounced back in his second year, and then going into last year, the Jaguars had the best odds to win that division. That was the first time that team had any expectations in a long time, and they took a big step backwards. And a lot of people like to say Trevor Lawrence isn't the problem there. I think it's fair to. I think you're right that he's maybe unfairly escaping criticism. I think there's enough blame to go around there, and yeah, I don't know if they did enough this offseason to put weapons around him. I mean, the
Right.
Texans put weapons around Stroud, the Titans put weapons around Levis, the Jaguars they just scrambled to replace Calvin Ridley, is what it seemed
Yep.
like, and I
Yep.
don't think they did a good enough job. So
I agree.
Something's going to need to change. Either Lawrence is going to need to step up. The offensive line, I think that's the most valid excuse that I've heard is the offensive line is just terrible. And Lawrence is one of those quarterbacks that needs a good offensive line.
Sure,
But
sure.
yeah, no, I think that's totally valid, and it is crazy how the league. It's like if you look at the quarterback, I think I saw this graphic a while ago. I wish I had it with me, but it was like a graphic of all the quarterbacks and what they're making per year, and it was like Geno Smith was in the middle, and there was just a massive gap behind him and above him. It was like
Right.
he's the only middle quarterback. Everyone else is either really good and getting paid like it, or they're really average and getting paid like they're really good, or they're still on their rookie deals. It's
Yes.
like there's no in between. And
No.
Trevor Lawrence's play, you're right, is definitely that of a middling quarterback.
Teams aren't willing to offer a mid-level contract, get rejected, and then see that quarterback that they drafted, especially number one overall, go to another team and succeed. They would rather pay this particular payer extra money to make sure that they stay and that player feels happy staying there, especially because of all the money. And then knowing that this is our quarterback, even though they're mid, even though they're average.
Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones, exactly. Easy example right there.
Yeah, it is tough because it's like, could the Jaguars go out and get another quarterback comparable to Trevor Lawrence right now? Probably not.
No,
Probably not.
no.
But committing that much of your salary cap over that many years is like that should also be off the table. Like to me,
Right,
it's
right.
like yeah, no, it's a massive pickle that they've put themselves in. And yeah, maybe, if this was before free agency, before the draft, like the Jaguars had opportunities
Sure.
but instead they kind of find themselves in this pickle. And yeah, I think they will eventually pay him.
Yeah, I think they will too.
Just that's the precedent that we've seen in the league. I
Exactly.
think at this point we're gonna transition away from off-season storylines and onto something else that I know you and I are both really excited to talk about on a regular basis, which is gambling. No, this isn't a gambling podcast, but they did come out with the team's over-unders shortly after the final schedule was released. And we both went through and we picked some over-unders, some team win totals we're talking about that we kind of liked in the AFC, things that stood out to us. So we're going to kind of go back and forth with some of those picks. And then maybe sort of what would you call it? Like an X factor, a certain player or like a specific X factor associated with that team that's kind of like making us lean one way or the other.
Sure.
And I can go ahead and start us off here. When I looked at the AFC team win totals, one of the ones that I liked was the Ravens to win over 11.5 games. And over 11.5, that is plus 125, according to MGM, when I looked at it. So they're giving you a discount if you want to go over 11.5. They had 13 wins last year, and they lost Mark Andrews for half the year. And so they're getting him back because he already came back for the AFC Championship game.
Right.
So we
Yeah.
know he's healthy enough to play. He has a whole offseason to get healthy.
Right.
And they added Derrick Henry this offseason. And I want to talk about both of those guys. Derrick Henry, just real quick. I know he's old. Okay, everyone's kind of like, well, yeah, but like, what kind of Derrick Henry is he? Okay, he's still averaging over 4 yards a carry. I know his age, but did you know in the last 5 years, Derrick Henry, a running back, has played 15 games, 16 games, 8 games. He suffered an injury that year.
Yep.
16 games, And then last year, he played 17 regular season games.
Wow. Wow. That's crazy.
For a running back in today's NFL, that is a bell cow.
Yes.
That's really rare to see.
Yes. I
That's
totally agree.
that's all I wanted to say about Derrick Henry. I know his yards per carry, they're still above 4. They are kind of slowly going down, and I kind of want to blame the Titans O line for that.
Yeah.
There's a couple things going on at once. Likely he is 30 years old, but anyways, I want to move on to Mark Andrews real quick. And I actually threw out a poll on Sleeper, and I gave this prompt. I said, I feel like Mark Andrews is, and then the three options were A, injury prone, B, a bit of an injury risk, or C, no more of an injury risk than the next guy. Andy, which of those three would you identify with Mark Andrews?
I'd probably put him a little bit in the middle.
A bit of an injury risk?
Yeah. Yeah. Probably.
Yeah, he did get hurt at the end of last year. So he did kind of burn fantasy owners. He missed the fantasy playoffs. And you would be in agreement with the vast majority of people on Sleeper who responded. Just over 80% of the respondents were either
wow.
in the injury prone or the middle category, a bit of an injury risk. So
Sure.
most people are at least a little bit worried about Mark Andrews. And I went back and I looked at it, and he's missed 12 games in 6 years.
Wow. He's been in the league for 6 years. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, not talking about fantasy points, just the fact that this is gonna be his 29-year-old season. So by the time the season starts, he'll be 29. He's been in the league 6 years. He's missed 12 games, so that's 2 games a year on average that he's missed, and that includes 6 from this most recent year.
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't really phrase it as I'd be worried about him. I would just be have that expectation that he might miss a handful of games.
Sure. No, I think most people have that expectation.
Yeah.
So, and I'll just make the case real quick, and this is my own opinion. He missed all those games last year due to the now outlawed hip drop tackle, where the
that's right.
defender wraps around and then they just all their body weight onto the ball carrier's ankles. So that is what took out Mark Andrews. That kind of tackle is now illegal. And 2 of the other games he's missed in his career, I think, were due to COVID in that weird COVID season. Like he was
Gotcha.
sick. So it's like, honestly, kind of fluky things. So I think Mark Andrews is a value in drafts. I think he's going to be healthy for most of the year.
Yeah.
But even if you don't think he will be, here's an interesting stat that I found. In games where Mark Andrews didn't play, the Ravens are still 9-3.
Wow. That's
But
crazy.
get this. Lamar didn't play in those 3 losses.
Well, yeah, that adds. Yeah, so basically 9-0.
Yeah, so Lamar Jackson is undefeated when he doesn't have Mark Andrews.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. So I mean, it sounds like a negative when you put it that way, but I just wanted to make the point that the Ravens' offense is not injured. It's not as risky as most people
No.
think it is.
No, I'm not worried. I think this is a great line. The fact that you're getting plus 125 as well, I think is huge.
That is
You're
part of
getting-
why I liked it, and
Yeah, you're
maybe
getting plus
that'll move
money.
around a little bit, but yeah, no, it's that's really exciting to me.
No, that's an easy check mark in my mind.
Cool. Yeah. Hopefully. What do you have for over under that caught your eye?
Yeah, I'm sticking with the AFC South a lot this conversation. I'm going with Tennessee over 6.5 wins. I think I think Levis is going to surprise us. I think he's going to have a better year than people think. It's a whole new coaching staff. They upgraded a lot of their weapons. They got Tony Pollard. They got Calvin Ridley. They're bringing back their tight end. I know the offensive line probably needs some work, but I'm hopeful that the new coaching staff and Will Levis being in his second year will upgrade everybody around them. I think they're going to make a bigger leap, and I'm excited to see if that comes to fruition. I didn't write down the plus or minus on that on taking Tennessee over 6.5, but that's 7 wins. I feel like all you need to do is be a mid team, an average team.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's very achievable. 7 wins. I'm gonna see if I can pull it up while you're
Okay. Yeah,
while you're going.
and I know they got L'Jarius Sneed from Kansas City. I mean, they are, speaking of adding weapons and making a push, they are banking on their rookie quarterback, and they are going all in. And so I just 6.5. I mean, that's just too, to me, that's too easy. They could get that in the first. They could get that in the first 10 to 11 weeks of the season.
Plus 115.
Yeah, so not amazing, but not
No,
bad
that's
either.
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's really good. I think it's super smart what they're doing team build wise. They have a guy that they don't know if Levis is good or not, and they're going to tell the media that they think he's the next great, you know. But it's like
Right.
they have no idea.
No,
But
none of
it's
it.
a new coach and it's a
Yeah.
new GM, and what they've done is they've added so many pieces. They've overhauled, like you said, it's kind of like they're removing every excuse you could possibly have,
Yep.
so that by the end of this year, you know what you have. So I think that's super smart. You're not stuck in this limbo middle where like you're in a Daniel Jones situation and you're like, well, I don't know. Maybe if we got him another wide receiver, he'd be good. Let's
Right.
let's run it back. It's. I think that's very smart. I don't know what to make of Will Levis. I was very down on him in the draft process, and then he finally got his chance to start, and he threw 4 passing touchdowns, and it was like, oh my god!
Yeah.
And then he
Yeah.
didn't really do much after that. So I
No.
have no idea
No.
what to think.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm hopeful on the team, on him, and on the team.
It's a very solid roster, more solid than I think people think. They think they just associate the Titans with Will Levis, and they think,
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
But it's a very solid roster and a wonky division. So I like that pick.
And maybe he just needs to do like what Brock Purdy does. Just put it in the hands of the playmakers. You don't need to be fancy. You don't need to be running all over the field. Just don't get sacked and complete
Yeah,
it
don't
to
hold the
your
ball.
guys. What about you? What's your second team?
Yeah, my next one that I wanted to talk about, I went under for the Chargers, under 8.5. And that is also plus 115. Everyone's talking about the Chargers. Everyone's really excited about the Chargers. You got a new coach coming in, Jim Harbaugh. He's installing his culture, his system, and everyone's really excited. Kind of like we were talking about the Titans. You just associate the Titans with Will Levis, and so most people are out. I think everyone associates the Chargers with Justin Herbert, and they're in. And I think that that's kind of an overreaction too, because you look at the rest of this roster, and Mike Williams is gone, Keenan Allen is gone, Quentin Johnson looks like a bust so far. Their running back is like 29-year-old Gus Edwards. I love Gus Edwards, but he's never been asked to be the guy. His thing has been efficiency on kind of limited carries most of the time. So I just don't know if it's all going to come together year one of Jim Harbaugh.
I agree. I think I'm going to push back a little bit and say I think when you think of when you hear the Chargers, you think of Justin Herbert and now a national championship winning coach, John Harbaugh. So I think there's a lot of hype around those two names, but I totally agree. I don't think the offense has any direction right now, except for Justin Herbert putting on the superhero cape.
Yeah.
Superman capes, gosh. And people have to remember John Harbaugh didn't win the national championship or even get close to it his first year in college with the Wolverines with Michigan. It
That's a
took
great point.
years. It took many iterations and finally getting his guys, his team, his coaching staff the way he wanted it. And look at the outcome. Look at the product that he can develop.
Yep. Yep.
But it's going to take time. So I totally agree with this decision. I don't think the Chargers are going to make much of an impact this year. I think it's going to be I think there's going to be a lot of headlines of the normal, like the old Chargers, the same old Chargers,
Chargers gonna Charger.
Chargers
Yep.
going to charge. Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's the line's at 8.5. So they would need to have a winning season year one with Jim Harbaugh. And just an interesting note in talking about that team build and how it's going to take time. I looked up the team's salaries on like Spotrac. The three biggest cap hits against the Chargers are all on defense. It's Joey Bosa, who misses a ton of games every year. Khalil Mack, who's great, but he's 33.
Yep.
Same age as Aaron Donald, who just hung it up.
Oh, wow.
And Derwin James is the third biggest cap hit this year.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. Derwin James started off his career missing a bunch of games. He was healthy all last year. So I'm not trying to take anything away from those players. Those are all good players.
Yes,
And
yes.
But like all three of those guys being healthy all year would be
Phenomenal.
it would be like lightning striking twice. That doesn't really even help all of the offensive concerns that we've already listed.
Right.
So I just see this year as a year where he drafted Joe Alt, the best offensive lineman. Like he's building for the future. He's implementing his system, his mentality, and his culture. And this is a rebuild year.
I totally
And
agree.
that line really surprised me, 8.5.
Yeah.
How about you? What's your second team over under?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Patriots under 5.5.
I like this. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you look up while I'm talking what
Yep.
the plus minus is? But this team is trash. They have no direction. They lost Zeke, which was really surprisingly efficient last year. They have a bunch of wide receiver threes, maybe a splash of a couple wide receiver twos. They have no wide receiver one dominant guy on that team. They have Drake May, which is going to be a lot of work, and I just think Bill Belichick left this team in shambles, and it doesn't. Even if it was like another Don Shula, even if it was just like a great head coach, I still don't think they could put this team over 6 wins or more. This team it's going to need a lot of work. Gerard Mayo is in for a tough job because I don't think he can save the team, and their schedule is really bad. Like nothing is pointing in their direction.
It's brutal. Yeah. So under 5.5 is minus 140. So they're not giving you a discount. They're not being exactly friendly as opposed to all of our previous picks.
Right.
But I wouldn't shy away. Even though you're not really getting your bang for your buck with this one, I think it's a good pick.
Yeah.
I think, like we talked about, we're both kind of lower than consensus on Drake May. But even Drake May people, like his rookie year, you think he's going to win 6 games
Yeah.
in his rookie year? They're going to come out on top 6 times without Bill Belichick, the mastermind, the special teams guru.
Right.
Yeah, no, I don't see it. This whole roster, we did our Dynasty League tier rankings a couple weeks ago. And I would put the Patriots team, if we were talking Dynasty, I would put the Patriots roster in the You Need Jesus tier.
Yes. Yeah, the real NFL team. Yeah, the real Patriots.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another point on the minus 140. That's also an indication that a lot of people agree with that
Yeah.
statement. And there was another point I was going to make on that, but I can't remember.
Well, that ties into what I was saying earlier because it's like even the sports book would probably admit that like 4 wins is probably about what you're
Mm,
looking at, but they're
yes,
too
yes,
scared to set the over under that low.
right.
So they're going to set it higher and then make it minus 140 to tempt people into going over.
Yep, I totally agree. I totally
But
agree.
yeah, I think the smart money's on the under there. And yeah, we can move on to my third pick if we're ready.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's I've if you've listened to our previous episodes, you know I'm going all in on Aaron Rodgers and the Jets for this year. Uh, I'm looking at the Jets line. It's set at 9.5. I'm going over, and that's plus 120. So that's kind of a hot take to say
Definitely.
over 9.5.
Definitely.
Um, Part of that is the division. We just talked about it. We just talked about how the Patriots, I don't think, are going to be super competitive this year. Bill Belichick's gone. The Bills, they lost Stephon Diggs. The Dolphins, you never know with Tua, and they seem to collapse once the weather turns every year. So I think, I mean, honestly, right?
Yeah, no,
I,
yeah,
I
you're right.
I
It's
lost my
just funny.
notes. Oh, here we go. I think the Jets have a high upside. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would agree with the high upside. Yes.
And I think that they have a high floor as well. Not necessarily, not like the floor is at 9.5 games or anything, but this team won 7 games last year with
Yeah.
with poop at quarterback.
Yeah.
And if you replace that with Aaron Rodgers, you know, multiple MVPs, Aaron Rodgers, a full offseason recovered from his injury, I think you can get to 10 wins. That doesn't seem like too much to ask. So if you want to say that you don't trust Aaron Rodgers to stay healthy, I totally get it. Totally get it. I mean, we can't predict injuries.
Right.
You can say he's old, and it's a you're just being overly optimistic if you think he's going to stay healthy all year. That's fine, but I think they can get to 10 if they have a competent quarterback all year.
Yeah. I just have a hard time trusting the Jets. Honestly, I don't think Nathaniel Hackett is that good as an offensive coordinator. I don't think.
No argument here.
Yeah, I think the defense is gonna need to carry that team, and I know they improved the offensive line, but how much is the biggest question. They
Well,
do
I
have
could tell you.
okay.
They signed Tyrone Smith in free agency. He is
Oh,
an
that's right.
eight-time Pro Bowler, 5-time All Pro, and this most recent year he was second team All Pro. He's on the older side and he's dealt with a lot of injuries, but he is healthy now. He is reigning All Pro, and he's going to start at left tackle. And if and when he goes down, they drafted Olu Fashanu, 11th overall, left tackle out of Penn State. So he's not even scheduled to start. He's
Right.
their insurance to All Pro Tyron Smith, and their other offensive line additions in free agency. They signed a guy named John Simpson, who played 99% of the snaps for the Ravens last year. He's a guard, so I'm not going to pretend to know how good he is,
Right.
but I know he was good enough to start for the Ravens, a run-heavy team. He started all year and stayed healthy all year. And they made a trade. They acquired Morgan Moses, also from Baltimore, and he's going to be their starting right tackle, Morgan Moses. And he has started every game since 2015, except for
Wow.
one. He's missed
Wow.
one game since 2015.
Wow. Well, I don't know. Maybe you've swayed me. What? It's 9. It's over. So they have to get double digit wins. This ties
10 and
into
7. Yep.
yeah. This ties into the whole Buffalo. This just ties into that division as a whole. I mean, I don't really see how Buffalo can unless they do what they did last year, come back and win that division. Miami, like you just said, their regular season is really good, so Yeah, I mean, we're putting you're by this line, you're saying that they're at least a wild card team, and
Yeah,
I
yeah,
I have to agree. It's just superstition. It's just past history. That's really the only thing holding me back. I have to see it to
yeah.
believe it.
And any bet on the Jets is a leap of faith because
Yeah,
it's just like we talked about Chargers going to Charger. The
yeah,
Jets always blow it. So,
yes,
I could just be a giant sucker, but I'm just going to say, hey, we can't predict injuries. On paper, this team is a double digit win team,
sure,
and you're giving me plus 120. So I'm just going to
yeah,
take the leap and see what happens.
sure. I hear you there.
Have we done? No, yeah. So you still got one more.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna go back down to the AFC South and target Jacksonville. They have an eight. Their win total is 8.5. They have
Mm-hmm.
a minus one. Last time I checked, they have a minus 115 on the over and a minus 105 on the under. So that to me that says that both a lot of people are agreeing. A lot of people are saying on the definitely a little bit more on the over, but they're also saying they believe in the under as well. It's a lot of 50-50s. It's almost 50-50. So I'm going to pick the under. I don't think Jacksonville's. I think Tennessee's going to try to take that second spot. I think the Colts are going to fight tooth and nail to try to get that second spot, and I could easily see Jacksonville being the third or fourth best on that in that division. So I'm going to say under 8.5 wins for Jacksonville.
Yeah, they were a massive disappointment last year, and I know they were one of the teams I kind of liked. I thought they were sneaky, uh, but yeah, it just didn't come together. I thought that their draft picks, they had a lot of high draft picks, especially on the defensive side. I thought just with some continuity and some coaching up, that they were going to start to turn it around, and that just wasn't the case.
Yeah.
So, it's unfortunate. And then, yeah, like you said, their division is just making all sorts of moves. So it's going to be really hard for them to get a winning record this year. Seems like a lot to ask. Um, yeah, yeah, and then every point you made about Trevor Lawrence earlier, just being so far, just so mid.
Yeah,
One of the
exactly.
one of the best college quarterbacks of all time, honestly.
Yeah. Him. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It'll be interesting to revisit this when the season gets going. I think this is definitely something we can track. Maybe we pick a couple times during the season and check in on these.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, I think we're going to try and get back together again next week, and we'll do this exact same thing for the NFC. And did you have anything else to add, Andy, before we get out of here?
No, no, nothing to add. NFC coming up next.
Thanks a ton for making it to the end of the episode. You're a real one. Don't forget to like and subscribe. That's a free, easy way to support the show, and it really helps us out. And leave us your comments down below if you're on YouTube, or send in your questions at thefantasyflowpodcast@gmail.com. Until next time.